and the UK and Germany won't be in trouble. And then you could actually enforce the sanctions on Russia. Okay, so everything he said is a bunch of BS and garbage when you look at the bigger picture and what can be done. Let's go back to where we should be. Number one, they should have been raising rates all along, going back to 2013 when Ben Bernanke puked on the taper tantrum, they called it, in May of 2013. They should have been hiking rates all the way up. Second thing, they said that inflation was transitory, which everybody in the world knew that was a bunch of garbage. It wasn't transitory. It was real hard inflation. Third of all, we're not doing what we can do to really prevent the inflation, which is go back to fracking and shale producing, and you won't have to worry about inflation. And the UK and Germany won't be in trouble, and then you could actually enforce the sanctions on Russia. Okay, so everything he said is a bunch of BS and garbage when you look at the bigger picture and what can be done. We should not be suffering through these inflationary times in the United States. We should be able to raise the rates with no problem because they have to go higher because their really nominal rates are still negative, even if they raise 2% at the next rate hike. So it doesn't really matter. It matters on what we're willing to do to create and save ourselves from these inflationary times. People have to understand is what he's really talking about is the Fed funds rate is what the bank's borrowing cost is overnight, not what your loan cost. Your loan costs are usually based off of the 10-year notes. They used to be based off of LIBOR until there was some funny business going on with that, but they're based off 10-year notes. So, it's a premium in notes. So the banks are loving the fact that rates are going higher because their spread's bigger. But it's really the Fed funds rate is based on what banks lend to one another overnight.
Okay. So you don't think a Fed pivot is on the table for, I guess, the following meeting in December or perhaps next year?
Where are they going to pivot from, David? They don't have any room to pivot. That's why they're raising rates into a recession. Okay, even though they've changed the dynamics of what a recession is, they're raising rates in a recession. It's never been done in history.
That's right.
Okay, so now why are they raising? Because there's a political agenda behind all of this stuff that's going on, which is really to try to create the Great Reset. Because let's face it, the fiat currency system itself is fraudulent. So we've got a lot of issues, and we don't want to solve them because they're easily solved. And one is by going back to fracking and shale producing, which would not add nothing to the carbon footprint. Okay. Instead, we've got record amounts of coal being burned right now because of the energy crisis going on. Okay. You've got a number of different inflations, one being hyperinflation, which is where we're headed. The whole fact that they went into the transitory business a couple of years ago when everybody knew that this was going to happen is the problem. And wait until the price of oil starts skyrocketing again. What do you think is going to happen to inflation then? We're going to have a food shortage this year, David. Okay. We're going to have food riots in many countries. We're already having them now. Okay. But in the United States, we're going to be paying a heck of a lot more to eat than we used to have to pay because, again, the cost of inputs have continued to go higher because, again, of these first of all, the rejection of that there was inflation a couple of years ago and the ability that they had to raise rates. The numbers that they report, the CPI, which was 8.5 last time, really tells us that nominal interest rates are minus 5%. Okay. And if you really want to know, the fact of the matter is that there's no way CPI is 8.5%. They don't count food and energy. What is every family's biggest cost other than an emergency in their home? Food and energy. So again, how can you leave out the two core components that, yes, they're volatile, but they also are your number one expense for the average family barring an emergency? We've got a third quarter coming of negative GDP, and it's never happened before. Okay.
So what is this going to do to the economy?
Listen, we're already in trouble. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. The markets have been slightly in an uptrend, but overall, I expect to see a 50 to 60% haircut to these markets. I think that we're going to get creamed at some point. You can only hold up a helium balloon so long. Eventually, the helium comes out, and it's starting to come out now. Now, again, today's sell-off, I don't put much into it. It's a sell-off, okay? But overall, we'll see if the trends change and the markets start to go down. But I'm certainly pretty certainly well convinced that we're going to go 50 to 60% lower before this whole thing is all done. They have totally trashed the economy and done everything as badly as you can handle something has been done by not only the Fed, but the administration in power.
So what's going to go 50 to 60% lower?
The equity markets are
the equity markets.
It's really hard to say what it was. The volume has been very, very light. So it's been really hard to grab. In the summertime, it's hard to really grasp. Is it truly a bear market or a bear market rally, or is it just a natural rally? When you have very light, our volumes were down about 50% for about 6 or 7 weeks. So it's hard to grasp why. Normally, bear market rallies are the most vicious and the fastest and look the best. So I can't say that this was directly a bear market rally. However, if anybody looks in their own finances, they can certainly see that it's recessionary times and they're watching their spending, because again, the price you're paying at the pump is a big dictator to how we live the rest of our life.
Okay, let's touch on that. So energy prices, we're not yet at $100 a barrel. What's the next leg move? You think it's going to be up or down?
All-time new highs, I think, are coming. Again, this is far from over. They've drained the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which has never worked ever in the history. It's been tried 5 or 6 times. It has never worked. That oil is supposed to be in place for wartime. Okay, and now they've sold a bunch of it to China. Okay, now if the only way they're going to solve this problem, today, is to go back to fracking and becoming a net exporter of natural gas and crude oil once again, which would be a tremendous help to the UK and to Germany, as well as finally making the sanctions that they tell us are working on Russia work, because Russia is celebrating every time President Biden opens his mouth. Russia celebrates. They're making a fortune right now because they control the entire natural gas and a lot of the oil market in Europe. Well, good news. Listen, good news is markets, do this on occasion anyways. It's not like we haven't seen it before. We saw it in 2008, we saw it in 2001, and we saw it in 1987. So it's actually healthy overall, because the one thing about the United States of America is that every 2 years you get a new shot to change the voting block. Okay, but they're going to have to do something with the fiat currency system there. Again, it's a fraudulent system. It's put a lot of pressure on gold. Now, again, I'm a big fan of gold long term, but I am short gold now on paper. Right. I'm always long in physical and storage. But I think that gold's going to be under a lot of pressure as well. I think what you're really going to see is the soft commodities are going to benefit first. And we already started to see that turnaround in the grain markets. Gold didn't look good before this. Gold peaked on August 12th again, along with silver, and basically hasn't had I think it's had one up day since. Okay. So I think what you're really seeing is just a market that, when you look at the price action has been very ugly for about 2 weeks, and even before the rally came. And I think that it's in a bear market. It wouldn't surprise me to see 1,600 or less. Okay. Again, I think you have to establish in your mind whether you're investing or you're trying to trade it. If you're investing, don't over leverage it. Just buy what you can afford and just put it away. Because I assure you, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, gold's going to be double what it is now. But it's going to take a lot of guts and glory to get through this, right, as we see in all markets. It doesn't really matter. We want to convince ourselves that gold is the savior of the safe asset play. The truth of the matter is the number one place where money goes when it's scared is into the U.S. dollar, because that's where countries put their money when they're concerned.
So gold's going to do well 5 to 10 years from now. Well, what about in the intermediate or interim? In the medium term? I'm short gold, and I don't see it turning around anytime soon. Could it? Sure. We could rally next week and get long. Okay. But based on the long-term algorithm that I use, we're short, and I don't see any signs of it turning around anytime soon. So I think that we'd have to probably go ahead. You're bearish on gold, you're bearish on the stock markets. Where should people go then?
Well, I think the stock market, now this again, you have to define what your objectives are. Okay. If you're just trying to trade the market, I'd be buying soft commodities if I was just trading. Okay. Mm-hmm. If I was investing, I have no problem that the equities are soft. I'd be looking for some value plays there that I know I could hold on to. Same thing with gold. I'd be a buyer of gold, silver, and platinum if I could afford to hold them and was not leveraging. And I'm not talking about buying mining stocks or buying stocks. I'm talking about buying the hard assets that you can either store at Kitco or put in your safe at home, whatever you want to do with it. I'm talking about the real hard asset, but you got to have, first of all, a cast iron constitution to do that. And you got to be willing to hold it and not worry about panicking out if it goes lower, because it's probably going lower, but it's really just a buying opportunity, in my opinion.
And it's
going to cost the average American taxpayer $2,000 a year to finance this ridiculous program, which, by the way, is unconstitutional and will get kicked by the Supreme Court. There is no way that they're going to be able to run this program through. Okay, it's going to be kicked at the Supreme Court level. These loans are not going to be waived. They're not going to be forgiven, and so the American taxpayer is not going to be stuck paying the $2,000 per taxpayer. But again, it's obviously we're getting closer to an election. We're doing everything we can from that side of the aisle to make sure we get reelected, which they won't because they've destroyed this economy. But this will never get through the Supreme Court. You can bet on it. There's a law at the way that the government's being run, and if we were in a pandemic and still declared as such, which we are not, then the president has a little bit more power to make one of these programs stick, but it would still have to clear through the Supreme Court. But based on what is being said and where we are right now, it is truly an unconstitutional amendment, or whatever he's trying to do, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And if you read the Constitution, which is obviously very dry and wry, but in the meantime, it will tell you that this cannot be done under the current circumstances and what is based in the United States of America.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are some moral objections to this as well. Some people will point to.
Yeah, I want my money back. I just paid $500,000. Let me get my money back for my two kids.
But
there's going to be.
Yeah. Go on.
I paid for it. I paid $500,000. Where's my money? I didn't take any loans. Okay. Again, this is ridiculous. You went to college. You're pushing college. Again, you can't change the rules as they keep trying to do. They keep trying to switch the ball. The same thing with the recession, right? 2 consecutive quarters is no longer considered a recession. Well, if you look at your own bank balance, we're in a recession. So again, the Constitution will tell you, and the Supreme Court will kick this with no problem. This is never going to clear through everything that it has to go through. And by the time it would actually get ready to be done, it's going to be the election, and it'd be a surprise if the House doesn't completely turn over.
What are they going to forgive next, you think? Mortgages? Criminal records?
They're going to forgive everything because they really, this particular administration is really trying for the Great Reset, okay, which is to make everything equal. And, the Democratic Party, supposedly the party of the small guy, has done nothing but make Google, Facebook, and all the big companies much stronger, okay, and put every small business out of business, okay? So you tell me what their agenda is.
All right, well, I was just going to ask you what the agenda is because Trump just got raided. His private residence. This has never happened to any sitting and or prior president in the history of the United States. What happened there, Todd? Why did they do this?
Well, I mean, listen, obviously the party in power today is very concerned about him running for president again. I mean, you have to ask yourself, what are they afraid of? This has never been done before. Now, again, did he take that? I have no idea what he did. Okay. And I'm not supporting either side here. I'm just saying that it's never been done before. And for 7 years now, since the day he announced that he was going to run for president the first time, he has been manhandled like crazy by the press, by the FBI, by everybody. And yet here he is still standing and surviving, while the other side, you hear nothing of the other things that are going on that need to be investigated. So, again, it's not unconstitutional, but it has never been done before. And I assure you that every president that has left office probably has a few things in their closet that they wouldn't prefer people to find out about.
All right. Well, ultimately, you think this is going to impact the midterm elections at all?
No, I think the midterms are pretty much done. I would think it's going to be a cremation in the House. Okay, it'll be red. And I think that they'll retake the Senate. Okay, but they're not going to get to I don't think they're going to get to the 60 votes they need in the Senate to actually have total control, which is better. Look, I don't care what party you belong to. I belong to the Libertarian Party, but I don't care who you belong to. I think you always want a mixed government because you need to have some checks and balances, which we have none right now.
Well, what could Biden do? I mean, for the remainder of his term, what could he do to lower inflation? I'm not talking about the Fed. I'm not talking about Powell. What could Biden do to lower inflation? Because keep in mind,
go back to fracking oil and shale producing natural gas, and that would be the end of it. Inflation would go away. America would prosper. The UK would be out of trouble. Germany would be out of trouble. Russia would be in trouble because those sanctions would actually mean something that we put on them. Okay. And we'd be back to a prospering society. Okay. But they're too worried about their climate change, ridiculous agenda that couldn't be done for 20 years anyway. Okay. No matter what, our power grid wouldn't handle it. Okay. And like every other president, and this is every president in my lifetime, has promised to fix the infrastructure. Our infrastructure is breaking down. Okay. And to quote President Biden back when the Colonial Pipeline got hacked, okay, if you remember, they shut the gas on the East Coast. He said, it's not our problem, it's a private company. Well, I got news for you. I guarantee you their security is a lot better, and our power grid in the United States could be under attack at any time. And until they fix all those things, there ain't enough power or electricity to run the EV world.
Hold up. So you're saying that if we frack more, inflation might fix itself. Are you suggesting that?
We're importers of oil.
Are you saying that inflation was caused by oil going up to nearly $100 a barrel?
Yes, I'm saying that was the biggest single cause. Oil went from $30 a barrel to $120. Oil is involved in 80% of everything we do, whether it's the plastic bottle for your water, delivering the goods to your store. Okay, everything that we do, filling up your car. A lot of things use oil. Nobody thinks about it. You know how much oil it takes to make an EV? I mean,
so bring down oil, they bring down inflation. Well, then I guess the administration has an incentive to end the war with Ukraine early, right? They should, I don't know, do something.
They'd rather send them more money. They'd rather send money there because, again, there's always an agenda. Okay. And the agenda is not in favor of the middle class of the United States of America. The administration is looking to get what we call the Great Reset. Okay. And again, it's not healthy. It's not good. And there is no purpose because if you go back to the climate change, the carbon footprint did not change one bit, whether or not we frack and shale produce oil here or not. We're still burning through it. And we're still buying it in record numbers from Saudi Arabia, allowing them to benefit, which is why Aramco is the biggest company in the world right now.
What's the world going to look like after this Great Reset, Todd?
Well, I'm hoping it doesn't get there. And I'm hoping if it does get there, I'm dead by then.
Okay, so suppose it gets there. What is the ultimate plan?
It's going to be socialism, Marxism magnified, okay? And nobody will have anything. Okay, that's what it's going to look like. Everybody's going to be part of either you're going to be of the very wealthy, of the oligarch world, or you're going to be of the very poor. There's going to be no middle class left. Okay, it's going to destroy the entire world, in my opinion.
But hopefully, we don't get there.
I don't think we will, because again, one thing about America, you don't like it. Wait 2 years, you can change it. So hopefully, the voters will speak this time. And change it, because again, to the things that they're trying to do, even this one quick point, they just put $80 billion in the IRS to hire new agents, and at the same time they exempted themselves of ever being audited. Yeah, you tell me if that's fair enough.
So I think we should start applying for the IRS then. Is that maybe that's the message?
I'm talking about Congress. Congress and Senate exempted themselves from ever being audited. Okay, you tell me if that's the right way to go about business. Okay, same as the healthcare system. They have separate healthcare than guys like you and me have. Okay, so again, we've got big problems, but fortunately here, hopefully they can change. But it doesn't look healthy. The violence isn't good. The economy isn't healthy. The country isn't healthy right now.
Central bank digital currency for those people who may not be.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's horrible. You know what that does for you, David? It takes away all your privacy. Okay, it means they can track you from the time you're born to the time you die. Okay, it means you have no anonymity anywhere. And if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, like if you're out playing poker and you're not supposed to, your wife says you can't. Okay, she's going to know about it. Okay, everything you track and do will be tracked digitally. Okay, it's not healthy. Okay, this whole system is not healthy from a family unit, from any other standpoint. Your privacy is gone. The government can track you from the moment you're born to the moment you die.
So the wife's going to know that you're playing poker. I think I'll just marry a girl that's okay with me playing poker late at night.
like I said, if you're doing something that you don't want somebody to know about, everybody's going to know about it because it's going to be a digital footprint that can no longer be hidden.